everybody to the masterclass Stop Mugging, Start Behaving. And in this 45-minute masterclass, we'll go over what works and what doesn't work. And I will do everything that I can to give you some pointers to help you stop your horse from mugging behaviors. So before we start, next slide. First, I have three questions for you. How many of you here would like to be confident in teaching their horse to stop mugging? Because mugging is also related often with stress and frustration. The second question I would like to ask you is, how many of you would like to have a horse that is less stressed and frustrated when he's around you? And then who wants to have a relationship based on mutual trust and understanding? So let me know in the chat, and if you have answered one of these three questions with a yes, I would like you to know, share with you that you are in the right place. So today I'm going to share with you three things that will help you understand your horse better and that will help you teach him more desirable and safer behaviors. So number one, we will go over what is mugging and what it's not. So we're all on the same page to start with. The second thing that I would like to share with you is why punishment and ignoring bad behaviors don't work and don't give you the results that you were told they would have. And then number three, how to get the behavior you want in a way that supports the horse-human relationship. And I will try to make it really, really practical, and I will share examples. So when you go to your horse, you can start immediately implementing all these things. Let's get started. Just a short introduction of, for those of you who don't know me or know my work. I've been a positive reinforcement horse trainer and clicker coach for over 25 years, and I teach horse owners to train their beloved horse so they can enhance the horse-human relationship. And I help them to develop a clear, friendly, two-way communication that they can use in their training as well as in their daily interactions with their horse. And my proven HippoLogic training method helps owners to train new behaviors quickly, and it supports and deepens that relationship that I'm talking about all the time. It also creates mutual trust and understanding based on love. And in this way, we create confident horses that are safe and fun to be around. And I offer online courses and personal coaching in the HippoLogic Clicker Training Academy. So let's talk about the topic that brought you here today. What is mugging and what it's not? I want you to think about your lovely horse and think about when he mugs you, in what situations does he do that? And how exactly does he mug you? So what does he do? And you can share that in the chat. And if you do that, at the end, I will give you some pointers how to start changing that behavior. So now I want you to think about when your horse is mugging you, how does that make you feel? If he's pawing for attention, pushing your pockets or nibbling on your clothes, because this is why we should address all mugging behaviors. It doesn't feel good when a horse is demanding. And it also means that he is frustrating because he is not getting what he wants. And that's not a good feeling. And it certainly prevents him to staying into learning mode while in training. So in training, we have to avoid that kind of frustration at all costs. So here's my definition of mugging. And once I had it clear, I could start working on decreasing these behaviors. And my definition has three important components. So to me, mugging means that the horse communicates, but in a demanding way, attention, treats, or something else by displaying unsafe or unwanted behaviors. That's really important. So when he sniffs your pocket, but he does it in a cute way and in an approach at an appropriate time, it's not considered mugging, and therefore That's not the behaviors that I'm addressing. It's really when they get demanding and that you think, stop it. So years ago, one of the horses at the barn where I boarded my horse, a handsome young Fjorden horse, he was 3 years old, Fred, had the nasty habit of kicking the doors of his stall door when we were in the barn, in the aisle, talking horses. And then he kicked once, and then he kicked again, and then he upped his game if he didn't get any reaction of us. So, of course, we went to him and we yelled, stop it, and he stopped. So, this is exactly why we got stuck in that loop, because at first it looked like it worked. But Fred only stopped for a moment with his door kicking. And as soon as we got back to talking again and walking away from him, he would do the same thing. He would kick his door. And when no one reacted, he would put his foot between the bars. And he was in a stall like this. So that would certainly get our attention because we were super afraid that he would get stuck with his shoulder or that he could get hurt. So that would make us run to him to help him, and mission accomplished for Fred. He got what he wanted, attention. So he kept doing this every day. So our punishment and ignoring the whole bad behavior didn't work at all. But we thought it was because he stopped when we shouted at him. And I will share with you how we solved this door kicking easily, quickly, and sustainably without any punishment. And because it's the unsafe behaviors and the demanding part that makes mugging so uncomfortable and so unwanted. Because when our horse is really demanding, those unsafe behaviors can also turn into dangerous behaviors. And that's when that nipping becomes biting, or when that pushing becomes pushing us just out of the way in order to get to the food. But what we often forget is that the horse is just communicating something with us. And it always has started in a way that is friendly and asking before he started to become demanding. So for us, we have to start listening to our horses. And that's what this is all about. Because what most horse owners don't understand is that the whole mugging thing is learned behaviors. We have reinforced this behavior in some way, shape, or form, and that's why he keeps doing it. For Fred, his reinforcement was simply attention. So in other words, we weren't even his owners, taught Fred to kick the doors and put his legs through those bars. And when I realized that, I also knew how to reverse that and start teaching him safer and better behaviors instead. So the good news is, with positive reinforcement, you can repair the holes in your training easier than with any other method. But you have to give your horse clarity. And clarity is my favorite word in clicker training. First of all, it has alliteration, which I love, but also clarity for our horses and also clarity for trainers. Because when we know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and also why we have to do it, it makes training so much easier. And I'll tell you a little bit more about all these things later. And by the way, mugging is not something that only occurs in clicker trained horses. How many horses do you know that kick their doors at feeding time, or start pawing when they are at the grooming place and their rider leaves them alone for a second to get something, or when horses pushes their leaders out of the way to grab some grass? So sometimes our animals also do exactly the same behavior as mugging, but in a different context. And then it's suddenly cute and lovable. So therefore, we really can create confusion in our horses if we, in his mind and in his experience, suddenly punish the same behavior. Recognizable? So the second thing is why punishment and ignoring behaviors don't work if you want your horse to stop mugging you. When we use punishment, we only say no to the horse and we don't say what we actually want him to do. So you don't give your horse an alternative, and this really makes it impossible for your horse to offer safe and desirable behaviors instead in order to get your attention. You can also create even more frustration in your horse or make him insecure about what you're going to do, which can damage the horse-human relationship. So let's dive into the science for a bit. So we really will understand what is punishment in scientific terms. And punishment is doing something to decrease the likelihood of that behavior occurring. Note that science didn't say to stop that behavior. No, to decrease the likelihood. That's the official definition. And you can do that in two ways. It's called positive punishment if you're adding something really aversive to make the horse change his mind, or by taking away something he really wants to have in order to decrease that behavior. And in our attempts to punish Fred for his door kicking, they weren't effective because he kicked his door every time we were in the barn and not paying attention to him. It was his best, but also his only way to contact us. So in order to make punishment work, the aversive really must overshadow the benefits for the horse why he's doing that mugging behavior. So this is the moment where I want you to think about, what does your horse get out of his mugging behavior? Why does he do it? And the answer is often for treats or attention, general speaking. And treats are food, and finding food and eating are survival strategies. And horses are also highly social animals that keep in touch with others for protection. So therefore, that internal motivation is really strong in our horses. Sure, you can punish your horse for mugging, but the only way to make that really effective is to make your aversive so painful, so nasty, that your horse will not thinking about mugging you again, or at least not doing it as often. And most people can't make the aversive in punishment strong enough in order to make it really work and effective. And I have seen punishment done effectively, and it was so horrible to see, and I don't think anyone who loves their horses can do this. One day I was at the barn and we had this paddocks, and about 8 horses were in each very large paddock, and there was a new horse introduced and there was some resource guarding going on, which means they were fighting over food. And the owner of that facility, very traditional man, he saw that happen. He didn't think twice. He went over, he grabbed his long whip and he started beating those horses that were fighting. I was shocked. And I also didn't think this would work, but it did. And even when he was not around, I never saw them fighting over food again. Now, a few months later, I was asked by the same man to help him load some of his horses, his young Friesians, into a truck. And when he entered his pasture, there were like about 10 young horses. They all ran away from them, and not just a little bit and then stopped and looked. No, they ran to the opposite side of the pasture. It was so shocking. And this is the downside of using effective punishment. It really can damage the relationship and the trust bond that you have so carefully built with your horse. So that's why I don't recommend it. So let's talk about negative punishment. And negative punishment, that we take away something the horse really desires in order to teach him not to do that behavior anymore. And horses and most animals really don't understand this principle. And actually, I have never seen this applied effectively. And so I went on the internet, I went in all the groups with professional other clicker trainers, and no one could really give me an example in which actual negative punishment in the way the science describes it was effective. So we think that if the horse nips me, I'll take away the food, or when he becomes pushy, I stop clicker training. But when that undesired behavior doesn't decrease, it simply means that the punishment didn't work. And the only way this would work is if we were 100% consequent. So if you're not a robot or don't keep your horse in a lab, it doesn't really work. And still, with punishment, we still don't tell our horses how we do want them to behave instead. And if we use negative punishment, we leave our horses in limbo about what to do. And a confused horse is not a happy horse. And this is why positive reinforcement to stop mugging is really, really helpful and effective. And when we teach our horse a desired behavior to talk to us and reinforce that behavior more than the undesired behavior, the likelihood that your horse will choose the new behavior is so much bigger. And that's how we can teach our horses to stop mugging us. So, questions so far? Please remember to put them in the chat, and then I will get to them in the end. So, what if you would simply ignore the mugging behavior? Because this is a common solution that in the traditional horse world, we are taught to do it like that. Just ignore it and he will stop doing it. And today I would like to show you why this doesn't really work for normal people like you and me. First off, the horse is only reinforced for exactly the same behaviors in other contexts. So think of that cute nose over the fence. And so most people at our barn would think that yelling, which is positive punishment, or ignoring Fred would make him stop kicking his door. But it made it worse actually, because he even started putting his leg through those bars. And here's why. So on the vertical axis, you can see the behavior frequency, the mugging behavior. And this is how often Fred would kick the door to get attention. And then on the horizontal axis, you can see the time. So over time, he does it. One day is a little bit more than other days. So let's see what happens if we one time, let's see what happens if we at one point in time stop reinforcing that behavior. So reinforcement removed. Now Fred thinks his attention vending machine has stopped working. What will happen? Well, he will do anything to get it working again. If you ever had that vending machine that didn't work, you start shaking it and you start pushing all the buttons. You will do anything until it works again. So that's when he started to put his leg through those bars. And this is what we call in science an extinction burst. They will do more, they will get more demanding. And when this happens, your horse is very frustrated and very, very unhappy. And some horses will even get angry. So this was what Fred was going through. And therefore, that's how he discovered that putting his front leg through those bars really helped to get what he wanted, attention from us. So poor Fred was experiencing an extinction burst. If we keep at it, eventually the behavior will go extinct and the mugging will fade out. But just as we think we are doing a good job by ignoring the mugging, and this is really essential to understand, is that it's completely normal to see a spontaneous recovery. So this is where the horse one more time kicks that vending machine, one more time does an attempt to see if that behavior really is broken or not. And when we do not expect a spontaneous recovery, we will just easily tricked into reacting. And when that happens, we just increased the behavior, but we also strengthened it. And we can start all over, and only this time it will take more effort and longer time. And it will also create more frustration in your horse. So Fred was, everybody was telling that Fred was stubborn, he was dumb, and he wouldn't listen. No, that's because that extinction burst and that spontaneous recovery behavior happened. So therefore he was dumb, but he wasn't. So this is also why everybody would tell me that I was crazy when I suggested to start rewarding Fred for desired behaviors instead of punishing him for bad behaviors. But it worked. So in order to show your horse that his behavior had really no function anymore, you must never reinforce this behavior ever again. And this is super tricky because as soon as we forget not to react and completely ignore that bad behavior, or when someone else starts reinforcing that mugging behavior in some way, shape, or form, we just have strengthened that behavior. So now it takes more effort to make it go extinct. In other words, ignoring is a recipe for disaster. And this is why it will work in a lab, but not for people like you and me. And we also love our horses too much, and we don't want to put them through such a rough time of frustration. And because that frustration is also not adding to the horse-human relationship. Also, an angry and frustrated horse is not in learning mode. So in training, you won't get the result you want if he is in this really high level of frustration. So now you know why simply ignoring the bad behaviors is never successful in real life, unless you will absolutely never reinforce that behavior again, and no one else in your environment will reward it either. Then he will just turn around and do something else. So let's talk about an effective way to stop mugging and a way that will contribute to the horse-human relationship. So this is the third thing that I promised I would share today, and what we can do to get the behavior you want and to stop mugging behaviors. So we already established that we are reinforcing the mugging behaviors. So instead of reinforcing undesired behaviors, let's reinforce desired behaviors and strengthen those instead. So first of all, we have to start thinking about this from our horse's perspective. What is his motivation to do what he do? What does he get out of it when he's mugging you? Because that's exactly what he wants. So some people say, but I shout at my horse when he does something naughty. How can he want that? Well, what are you giving him is my question. And the answer is attention. And that was also the case for Fred. He wanted our attention. And I can guarantee you, when you're annoyed, you are 100% focused on your horse. And there's a saying that even negative attention is attention, and that goes for horses too. So if we want to decrease the mugging behaviors, the most effective and easiest way is to change our behaviors and to change that chain of expectations. I ask you to write down in the chat how your horse is mugging, and I want you to keep these examples in mind when you're listening. So, but first, let's explain some terminology for those of you who are not familiar with the terms positive and negative reinforcement. So, reinforcement means strengthening a behavior. Positive reinforcement is strengthening a behavior by adding an appetitive, something the horse wants to have. Negative reinforcement is strengthening a behavior by taking away an aversive. So this technique don't work when you want to stop mugging behaviors. So here's my 3 steps method in order to make it really, really practical for you. First, we have to become aware how we are reinforcing those undesired behaviors, because that's exactly what we will use as reinforcement. Then we have to start reinforcing a more desirable but incompatible behavior as alternative for mugging. And then the third thing is we have to stop reinforcing the mugging behaviors. And this is super easy because our brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So if we shift to focusing and looking towards desired behavior, it's really not that hard. So when we do all this, your horse will really quickly choose that desired behavior more and more often. And this, you can see these results in the first training session. But yes, sure, he will fall back onto his old behaviors because those are habits. But over time, it will get better and better because his mugging behavior is now broken. But we have taught him an alternative behavior instead, and that behavior works even better. So my success tips is choose a behavior that is very, very easy for your horse to do and something he already can do. Because this is how you can make it a win-win. I love win-wins. So when you reinforce an incompatible, easy behavior, you get what you want. No more mugging and polite, safe behaviors instead. And your horse gets what he wants: clarity, understanding, attention, and a treat. The second one is that you have to make a plan and stick with it. And this is really where most people struggle. And this is how I help people, for instance, in the academy. And then the third thing is that when we have a clear plan, written it down, we know exactly what to do and when to do it. So let's get to some examples. Oh, I forget to take out 2 slides, I remember. So sorry about that. Anyway, these examples are examples of how we can reinforce incompatible, easy behaviors. So Kira is paying attention to my hand, my treat pocket. So what I do is I start working with protective contact, a barrier. So if a horse really would grab the treats, that will prevent the horse from being successful, because you just step a little bit, make the distance a little bit bigger. And then I would click and give a treat for looking away, moving away from the treat source. So if your horse is door kicking, incompatible, easy behavior that he already can do is 4 feet on the floor. So if we start reinforcing that, we have to also realize in the first few sessions, this will be only a second. But the more we reinforce this behavior, the longer duration he will offer. When your horse is really pushy and comes into your space, incompatible behavior is creating distance, teaching your horse to back up, for instance. If your horse is really pushy, again, you can start with protective contact in the middle, and then, for instance, a target stick is a useful tool to start teaching this behavior, and soon your horse will back up instead of moving forward and pushing you over in order to get to the treats he wants. So I was planning to get some videos, but that didn't work. Technical glitches, so we will skip that. But I hope by now that